Yeehaw! Today's video is sponsored by Bingo Showdown. My car just got towed. Whee! Hi, Kween. It's me, Bustopheles, and welcome back to Hot or Rat. And today we'll be reviewing episode 6 of Rupaul's Drag Race Global All-Stars, where, yes, Global All-Stars has gone too far. In today's episode, our queens were challenged to pair themselves up with another queen who they'd like to share a cocktail with, which is a lead-in for them finding out that they'll be creating knee-length cocktail dresses using materials that they brought from home. But the twist and the reason they are in pairs is because they won't be using the materials they brought. They'll be using their partner's materials. So we'll be going queen by queen to break down everyone's look, as well as discussing all of the drama from this week involving Nehellenia, Queen Kong, and Kitty Scott-Claus. But first, let's talk conspiracies and questions about the setup of the challenge this week, cause I'm smelling yet another rig. I present to you Exhibit A, the collection of brightly colored hardshell suitcases containing the fabrics that the queens brought from home. And what I found interesting about this image was that all the suitcases appear to be brand new with not a single scuff on them, and are generally of the same style and design. And on the topic of them being brightly colored, I did find it funny that not a single suitcase was black, blue, or gray. The top 3 suitcase colors according to this luggage website. And it is my professional investigative opinion that these bags were not brought from home by the queens, but in fact provided by production. Which isn't a big deal in and of itself, and was probably something you could have guessed if you thought about it for a second or two. But if the suitcases themselves were indeed not brought from home by the queens and are instead a setup by production, it makes a girl wonder, what else could be a setup in this episode? Like maybe perhaps the content of the suitcases. Did the queens actually bring this fabric from home? Or perhaps did the queens choose it off of a fabric wall from the workroom? Or perhaps did production just stuff these suitcases full of random fabrics and slap the queens' names on them and just pretend that the queens had anything to do with it at all? Or, and stay with me on this one, is the entire series a lie and Rupaul actually died years ago and was replaced by a lizard person? I'm kidding about that last one, obviously, because we all know the only lizard person in this room is me. Hi. Well, hello there. Lucky for you, we crossed paths, because I've got some news for you. You see, a new bingo hall's opened up around these parts, and they're having themselves a bit of a tournament, running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with over 70,000 other competitors already playing. And you can play too by downloading Bingo Showdown using the link in the description of this video. Once you're in, use tickets to get your bingo cards, of which you can play up to 4 at a time. Then the showdown begins as the caller starts announcing numbers. And remember, you're competing against other real live players, so you've got to dab your cards quicker than a cat in a hot tin roof if you expect to call bingo before the next fella. And watch out for the puzzle pieces while you're playing, because when you get enough of them, you can catch the outlaws running around town like old Stinkin' Joe here. Bingo! Looky here, I've already worked my way up the leaderboards and I'm sitting pretty in the iron tier. But maybe you're sitting here on the other side of the screen thinking you can do better. Well then, click my link below or scan the QR code on screen to start downloading Bingo Showdown right now. Because when you do, you'll get 3,000 tickets and 10 of each power up to help you get a head start in the game. And the kicker is, Bingo Showdown is free to download and free to play. Thanks Bingo Showdown for sponsoring today's video. Anyways, let's jump into talking tea and breaking down the episode. So the big drama this episode comes in really right off the bat as the queens are splitting themselves into their pairs. And immediately we hear a confessional from Queen Kong where she's laughing about how she's chosen Varo instead of Nehellenia as her partner because, in her words, she's wanting to keep Nehellenia at arm's length because she's, quote, so effing annoying. And poor sweet Nehellenia here is the only one at the end of the pairing session without a partner. So Rupaul gives her the opportunity to choose any pair she'd like to become their third. And to Queen's great relief, I'm sure, she chooses Pythia in Kitty's group. But Kitty Scott-Claus also apparently did not want Nehellenia in their group because in a confessional we hear her say, oh good, Dolores Umbridge is joining us. Who, by the way, is basically described as like an ugly frog person in the Harry Potter franchise and is maybe one of the worst characters in the book series besides Voldemort. But I digress, and the drama continues later when the queens open their suitcases up and begin conceptualizing their looks. Cut to Nehellenia sitting at a workroom table where she very obviously has been crying because she's ended up with Kitty's suitcase that had materials that she wasn't familiar or comfortable working with, on top of not liking the materials stylistically. And before we talk about the rest of the confessional drama, I will say, sure, it does seem maybe a little dramatic to cry over materials given in a suitcase, when in all likelihood everyone kind of played the lottery with the materials game today. But in her defense, there is $200,000, a crown, and a career touring the world doing drag on the line here. Anyways, Queen Kong is apparently having none of the tears and dramatics this episode, and we hear her in a confessional talk about how Nehellenia's feelings are valid, but Queen feels she's being a child and says the situation is pretty stupid, which is an interesting choice by the editors to have her chime in on this situation really at all, because Queen wasn't even in Kitty, Pythia, and Nehellenia's group, but Kitty, who was in her group, was also having none of the tears. In a confessional, we hear her say, we don't hear other contestants crying, then calling her an ungrateful cow. And then in another confessional, we hear Kitty say she thinks this fabric is ugly, referring to the fabric from Kitty's suitcase. Well, look at what she's wearing. They're assumedly referring to the pink velour t-shirt Nehellenia has on in the workroom. And then in yet another confessional, we hear Kitty describe Nehellenia as thick, here I believe using the British meaning of dumb or stupid, referring there seemingly to the way she's trying to construct the garment. Which means, if you're keeping count, we've now seen at this point in the episode, which is not even halfway through, Queen Kong described Nehellenia as effing annoying and a child, and Kitty described Nehellenia as Dolores Umbridge, an ungrateful cow, thick, and she's also insulted her outfit. And then later, not in a confessional, Queen does chime in that Nehellenia could construct a veil out of the lace material to hide her face, which I'm going to write off here as playful shade, but certainly didn't help in the narrative sense of this episode, where we're seeing so many confessionals of Kitty and Queen just calling her names back to back to back. And this is all in addition to the fact that in a previous episode where it was basically everyone versus Nehellenia in that untucked moment, we heard Queen calling Nehellenia a C-word and Kitty basically writing off Nehellenia's feelings, talking about how Miss Italy was mouthing off. When, in defense of Nehellenia here, it seems she really was just trying to express not feeling happy with some of the other girls, who she didn't name or call out, underestimating her. And let me first say about all of this, I am not bringing up this series of insults directed towards Nehellenia to say that Kitty or Queen or anyone else in this cast is a bad or evil person, because especially on a show like RuPaul's Drag Race, we can expect a little bit of playful shade and colorful narrative. But in my personal opinion, shade is only really fun in the context of RuPaul's Drag Race when the person on the receiving end has an opportunity to hear it and respond. Like in the playful moment where Queen said that Kitty could make a veil out of the lace to hide her face. Still, yes, arguably rude, but clearly all in good fun. All of these confessional moments where Queen and Kitty were basically just calling Nehellenia names behind her back for no real perceptible reason just kind of read as bullying, and I did find the behavior to be a little gross and kind of uncomfortable to watch. Because genuinely, I ask, what was the point of all of this narrative about how much Queen and Kitty apparently don't like her? When, I might add, Nehellenia is doing nothing to antagonize them other than, I guess, annoy them by crying because she's frustrated with the material she's got for this design challenge. And when, by my count, we've heard Nehellenia say 0 mean-spirited things to or about anyone else throughout these 6 episodes thus far. However, while I found this sequence of confessionals difficult to digest, I was doing my best while watching, and now while explaining what happened, to remember that at the end of the day, this is just reality television, and these confessionals are not the sum of these queens, nor are the episodes a complete depiction of what's happening on set day to day. But I am still left with the question after this episode of, why? Why did we need to see so many different moments in this episode where it feels like the other queens in the cast are ganging up on and being mean to Nehellenia? What is the story the producers are really trying to tell here? And whose side are we supposed to be on? And I don't understand who it's serving, because it certainly is not doing any favors for Queen and Kitty in the fan base. But I suppose this could be some kind of elaborate setup to build Nehellenia's underdog character and get her ready for a Final Four position. Who knows? But I will once again stress, I am here mostly being critical of the production choices involved with the airing of all these confessionals, because with the way RuPaul specifically interacts with and loves anything and everything Kitty does, it does make me wonder if they thought we would just also be along for that ride and think all of that was funny. But also in this particular situation, the queens did say everything they said, and as RuPaul says, don't blame it on the edit, you're the one that said it. Regarding the IRL resolution of this drama though, Nehellenia did post an Instagram story addressing several of the comments Kitty made this episode, and in that post she wrote, "Here again asking you to not send hate to anyone. It's a TV show, time has passed, and between us queens everything is okay now. Many misunderstandings certainly derive from the fact that we have different cultures of origin. As an Italian and an extremely sensitive person, I tend to experience emotions perhaps too intensely, and for this reason I may have been misunderstood. The cow said by Kitty was not an offense, it was an interlayer of her language. We are still playing on her stupid cow. Kitty Scott-Claus and I are very close now, and it hurts me to read some hateful comments towards her. I understand taking a stand, supporting your favorite queens, but do it with respect." And Kitty seems to be laughing off most of the cultural differences of her insults, posting this on her X profile, which is a picture of a show called EastEnders, where one of the characters is quoted as saying, "Cheers, you silly old cow." And then in another post to her X profile, she wrote, "Who knew calling someone a cow doesn't translate? Laughing emoji, crying." And as a reminder, as we covered in my prior video, Queen Kong did speak out about that Everyone versus Nehellenia Untucked fight and attempted to clarify some points about what exactly happened behind the scenes. And if you want to check all those out, I've linked that video below. And as a final note on this topic, I'll say, yeah, it is really difficult to watch who might be your favorite queen in the competition get what feels like bullied, especially behind their back. And I think it is totally fine and okay to have an emotional reaction to a TV show and feel upset, right? That is ultimately what the producers of the show are trying to accomplish. They're trying to make the audience feel something. And I think it is unfortunate in a way that some of it feels so heavy-handed and negative from particular people. It is also important to keep in the back of our heads that these queens, as they've said, have in real life worked out their problems and come to understandings. And now let's break down these design challenge looks. First up in the order they hit the runway, it is Alyssa Edwards, who paired herself with Tessa T and ended up with some materials she describes as scraps from Tessa's craft room floor. And the look she presents on the runway is something she describes as Katy Perry VMA after party realness. And girl, is it a bad time to be a Katy cat right now? And obviously with this season having been filmed a year ago, she would not have been privy to any of this current Katy Perry drama. But that's another story for another day. Back to Alyssa's world though, I will say this is honestly not the worst thing on the runway tonight, but I also won't pretend like it's one of the best. I do think people were being a little unfair online. There was an image, and it was not the best image of the look, let's be fair, posted on Twitter that was going around where the shape of the dress looked very boxy. But when you see this outfit move on the runway, it has a lot more shape and detail to it that I think just isn't captured by one screenshot. I was very impressed actually with the way she combined the two materials with that split down the middle, and also with the extra mile to create a fascinator and a handbag out of the scraps from the craft room floor. I think the shape that she created in the chest area is cute, it looks well made enough, and I like the gold chains on the gold side. This is a safe 3-flame hot for me. And next up we've got Tessa T, who's using Alyssa's coveted ostrich feathers and lace fabric. And honestly, these materials do look really, really nice, and I think Tessa definitely hit a jackpot of some sorts with this suitcase. Tessa comes out the runway and is giving us drama mama. This is a cocktail dress for a red carpet, but not just any red carpet. She's going to accept her like MTV Kids Choice Award. She's going to get her Oscar maybe as a very youthful diva. And I think she has done a beautiful job creating such a tight silhouette around her waist. That hourglass figure is clocked in working overtime, and the way she has played with the ostrich and that sequined lace is just so beautiful. Plus, she's paired it with the perfect hair. The body? Bodying. The mug is mugging, the dress is dressing, the shoes are shoesing, the ostrich is ostriching. And if I may say so myself, she's eating. She's munching, she's crunching. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, seconds, thirds, fourths, 5th. Tessa left absolutely no crumbs at that buffet table. This look was hot. And first in our next pair, we've got So de Muse from France, who's using Vanity Vein's materials here. And the fabric she's got is really gorgeous. This is a beautiful yellow gold color. And what I like most about this look is the head wrap and hair moment. I also think the makeup was very pretty tonight, but I do think she had several missed opportunities in the gown itself. She was going for that rouged kind of vibe, but ultimately missed the mark, I think, on developing out a proper structure for this gown, because it's a little misshapen there in the top, and it's a little misshapen down at the thigh level. And when she turns around, you see that cape flapping, and there's literally no back to this gown. It is fully an assless gown, which, like, hey, could be a pro and a con here, depending on what kind of, you know, cocktail hour you're going to. Just saying. But for the runway, I think this is a no-go for me. I did my best to keep an open mind, and she did her best to keep an open hole, but this look is gonna be a... And next up is Vanity Vein, who ends up using, honestly, I don't know what materials. She apparently started on an outfit the day prior of the runway that she had to scrap. And so then the day of the runway, she's seen in the workroom working with what looks like scraps. There's these strips of black fabric or like plastic, I don't know what it is, and then paper that she's scrunching up and using as accessories on her waist. And genuinely, I did question, like, was all of that in the suitcase? Regardless of where it all came from, though, I do very much admire the tenacity of her to continue gluing things to this up until what seemed like that very last hour before the runway. And what she ended up with was at least interesting. I love the fascinator on her head. That is really a beautiful focal point for this look. And I think the green to black ombre was really cool. It has like this edge factor to the look. And it is kind of giving more unconventional materials design challenge, but it does very much speak to that cocktail type of silhouette. But like if maybe Lady Gaga was doing something like this back in the day. I think this is one of those looks though that like the closer you get and the more you look at it, the messier it becomes. All those details do start to look very unfinished or haphazard. And it's kind of giving me Swamp Witch meets Car Wash. But I was impressed by the fantasy of what happened here. It's just that the actual result was kind of not great. So I'm gonna give this a warming up. And except from Down Under, it's Queen Kong who's using Gala Varo's materials. And Queen, in my opinion, definitely came up with the most interesting silhouette of anyone tonight. I was not expecting those giant wings on this dark red dress. I loved every second and stitch of this look. I think that black and red color contrast was really interesting, punky and edgy, and the hair, perfect. It was reminding me of those early Rupaul punk hairs, but it's doing all of that, but also leaning into this like CEO business bitch kind of fantasy. Like maybe she owns 51% of this underground nightclub. Queen sold me the fantasy and had an excellent execution. This look was totally hot. And next up is Gala Varo, who turns the corner in what I think is an interesting look. And I'll say what I like about this is I enjoy that she tried some new things here. The really bodacious hips were fun, and I think the hair and makeup were, as usual as it is with Gala, very pretty. But honestly, I think the biggest issue with this gown was that really dark fabric, just absolutely not doing her any favors on the runway and totally causing us to lose her shape. It needed some sort of sequining or shimmer or shine or cutout or something just to give a little more dimension. And I also really did not enjoy those Argyle stockings she paired with this dress. It was like Randomize the Sim, and we've got Miranda Presley hair from Devil Wears Prada, lumpy dumpy dress, and sexy teacher costume stockings or something. And there is also the issue with the gold coffee filter situation, just kind of sitting at the top of the dress, like swallowing her neck a little bit. It wasn't a great look for me, and I'm gonna give this a... And next up is Giddy Scott-Claus, who ends up with Pythia's materials and actually constructed one of my favorite looks tonight. I can see that sort of ab-fab mixed with like a maybe early Y2K party girl situation, but she's also like housewife kind of vibes material there. Like there's a maturity to this party girl, and I get the character she's mapped into this costume as well. Technically speaking, I think she did a great job with that asymmetrical ostrich line neckline, and I think it's so fun and stupid and silly and drag to just like put a little strip of ostrich on the sleeve of her dress. She really lucked out with the materials here, but also executed on her concept well. This was totally... I do have to bring up though, RuPaul did specifically instruct the queens to keep their dresses above the knee, and Kitty here has a little asymmetrical moment where one side is coming down to mid-calf. Gotta call it like I see it, that's all, that's all. Is that favoritism? You be the judge! I'm kidding, it's a cute look. And next up we've got Nehellenia, who despite all of her anxiety and fears and woes about this material she ended up with, actually turn this look out. I was a little gooped and a little gagged when she turned around the corner and was giving me like first lady at the garden party kind of vibes. I think the Fascinator is super cute, and I think she made a great executive decision here to not use that third fabric, which was the black lycra, and she just stuck with that floral lace and the beige. It looks well constructed, the silhouette is strong, and I enjoy that little fashiony moment with that sleeve cut out at the shoulder, but then starting again back at the elbow. And apparently in the confessional here, she's talking about how she ended up staying up all night to complete this look and sewed it by hand because she couldn't get the machine to work with it the way she needed to. So to Nehellenia, we say, props to you, mama. This look was hot. And finally in our trio, we have Pythia, who ended up with Nehellenia's materials. And this look I struggled with a little bit, and I think I struggled with it more than any other look tonight, because while she was making it, and while it was sitting on the mannequin, I thought it was really cool. And technically, I think very impressive. The way that she has built in all of these ruffles and structure with the collar into this material, it's giving molten 24 karat gold superhero. But when she put it on and walked the runway in it, I wasn't really living. And I'll point out, my patrons actually knew this first because they watched my reaction to the episode over on my Patreon at patreon.com/BussyQueen. And I want to remind you that you too can catch those reactions with me every single week for every episode of RuPaul's Drag Race that I review by clicking the link in the description of this video. See you there. But back to Pythia's dress. There was something about the way it fit her that ultimately just didn't translate. And I think part of it was accessories, as RuPaul called out, because it was a bit much in here. Like maybe the necklace could have gone, and maybe the Bride of Frankenstein hair didn't make a lot of sense with this really pretty glamorous garment. And like, it's not bad. It just kind of was ultimately a letdown on the runway. So I'd give this like a safe 3 flame hot. Concerning placements, which have been of much contention this season, the judges call out Pythia, Kween, and Tessa as the tops, with the win going to Tessa, and the bottom 3 as Vanity, Soa, and Gala. And genuinely, I'm gonna stand in my truth right here. I don't disagree with these placements at all. I think this was the perfect top and bottom placement. I agree 100% based on what we saw on the runway. And I think a lot of people were struggling with Alyssa's look because they're maybe getting frustrated that she's coasting on safe and not entering the bottom, but I think she had a concept and executed on it well. While these 3 sitting here as bottom callouts all either failed in concept, execution, or both. Vanity Vane, though, does get saved from bottom 2, which I also agree with. I mean, really, I think the judges were on point this week. But our lip sync between Gala Varo and Soa de Muse to Bang Bang was really gaggy because they left out the best part of this song, which was the Nicki Minaj feature. And I don't know if that was an editing choice made because the queens didn't know the lyrics, or if that was just something they did for the hell of it, but that did gag me. That was the biggest gag of the lip sync. But performance-wise, I actually was a little bit gagged with the outcome as well, because I kind of think Soa out lip synced and out danced Gala, especially in the area of facial choreography. Soa is totally locked in here, giving emotion, camp, silly, fun. Like, she was having a good time performing, and I lived. What wasn't working for me about Soa's performance was the outfit. It was just not flattering, especially compared with the really sickening outfit Gala changed into. But I will also say Gala's performance was impressive. I just think Soa, like by 1 hair, outperformed Gala here. But Gala had a strong stage presence. She had some fun little tricks, some fun little, somersault situations, one of which she didn't stick the landing on perfectly, but she definitely tried. And so I wasn't totally mad that they asked Gala to stay here despite me feeling Soa won, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. So here we are saying goodbye to Soa Muse and Gala Varo surviving yet another lip sync with RuPaul trying her darndest to get rid of her every single week. And lastly, regarding all the drama with the Giddy, Nehellenia, and Kween situation, I will say this is possibly the biggest one-sided beef we've seen in the Drag Race franchise since Rolaska Talks versus Jinx. But the difference there being, I feel like Rolaska Talks was much more public with the way they, I'm using air quotes for bullying, right, talked about or were shady towards Jinx. It was different then because the true untucked moments allowed a lot of that drama to come out. And while there's always been stuff said in confessionals, there were always confrontational moments, which I think helped make some of the beef and drama not feel so one-sided. those are my thoughts. Those are my opinions. You have them. They're in the ether. Do with them what you will. Be good. Do not be bad. Be good. Mommy says so. And finally, let's talk hottest haunts. I'm, of course, giving mine tonight to Tessa T. And I also asked my patrons to vote on their hottest haunts, and they too have chosen Tessa T. And don't forget, y'all, click that link below or scan the QR code on screen to start downloading Bingo Showdown right now. When you do, you'll get a free gift of 3,000 tickets and 10 of each power-up to help you get a head start in the game. And don't forget, it's totally free to play Bingo Showdown. See you on the Bingo Showdown leaderboards. Yeehaw! And finally, I want to give an extra special shout out to Ashton, Felicia, Laura, Matthew Burns, Mika, Minst, and Will and Tana, who are all supporting me at my Bussy Queen Collector tier over at patreon.com. See you later. Love ya. Bye. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Honestly, wow, people would tune into that. I should do a video where I just do this for like an hour.